Quaid Azam, part 171. Well, if we see the phase of 19th century, the last half of the 19th century, Congress developed in 1885, and Shimla deputation was there in 1906, and Muslim League emerged in the second decade of the 20th century. And well, many of the congressional leaders would have said, what was the need for Muslim League? Are there not any parties in India? Do you believe that there should be one single party? This is the prerequisite of democracy, that you need to have multiple parties. Come on, those who believe that there was no need for All India Muslim League, I certainly call it nonsense. If there is a democracy, there would have been multiple parties. And India is not homogeneous, India is heterogeneous. Even if it had been homogeneous, there can't be one single party. One single party is that of the Communist Party, the Socialist Party. Since we have got democracy, since we want to have a republican system over here, we really needed to have multiple parties. How could we actually go along with only one party, that is your party, INC? So Muslim League came over there, and what all these congressionals had been doing, Muslim League was trying to adjust itself into the larger portfolio of the country. Muslim League in the beginning never called for a separate state. They asked for separate electorates, and they justified for it. I have also said many things, and I really don't want to repeat many of the things, but they certainly wanted to have separate electorates. They didn't want to have a separate dominion, a separate state. They only wanted to have separate electorates. And what was there right next to it? They wanted to have 1/3 representation in the center. The population of the Muslims in India was 25%, or automatically they could have had 1/4 of their representation in the center. But since they wanted to have some guarantees for the unification of India, they wanted to have something like 1/3 of the state representation in the center as well. And that was the requirement. You can share this work with him as well. That was the requirement, that they wanted to have 1/3 over there, and this was the requirement. Well, in fact, in the beginning, they certainly had it for them, they certainly believed it for them, but it was not provided in the later days. So what actually has happened over there, the Muslims were in favor of independent dominion. Could it be under the umbrella of the British Empire, or could it be out of the umbrella of British Empire? What they wanted to have the representation for themselves, separate electorate, and there is nothing wrong. They just wanted to safeguard their interest, and it was a good thing. They wanted to safeguard their interest. They also wanted to safeguard the interest of the community. Of course, one generation will not live forever. They will die, and then the next generation would have been, then the next generation, and they would have been living for centuries and centuries and centuries. And for this specifically, they needed to have some assurances on the constitution. So that was the framework provided. And come on, such trustless people over there. And in one instance, they agreed to it. They come along with Lucknow Pact. Well, we can have it in 1916. They say, yes, we're going to have your separate electorates, agreed, consented. Then, after a few years, there comes the 1928 Nehru report. It was in fact formulated in 1928 and put on stage on 1929, saying no separate electorate. Come on, does it make any sense? If you do not accede to something in matter of few years, what will happen in the next generation? What will happen in the next centuries? When we want to have this state forever, we want to have these considerations forever. And they were simply trustless people. They went against the separate electorate. They went against the Muslim representation in the center there of 33%. So in fact, the congressionals were the separatists. Congressionals were the separatists. Those leaders were the separatists. They forced Muslims to make their own ways. Muslims always wanted to be the part of this dominion, the part of this state. But in fact, it were the congressional leaders who were forcing them away, who was in fact putting them away. So what else they would have done? They were just trying to flee it away. And of course, there was a response by Muslim League, and because of the noble and the genius leadership of Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah.